It has been way too long since I just picked some random mass market paperback from a used bookstore and read it. And while this is not good, I had a lot of fun with it. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we will be talking about Beyond the Draak's Teeth by Marcia J. Bennett. This is kind of a nifty Wayland cover. Which this was $2 at my local half-price books. Just randomly picked it up. I'm like, that looks silly. I'm gonna grab it. I used to do that a lot more. I would get a random book and just try it out, and I found some that I really liked. I found some that I really hated, and it was kind of a mix. And I've kind of stopped doing that. So I grabbed this. It's pretty short, as you can see, and I had a really fun time reading it. Although this is not a good book. Finally found a name worse for me than Grag from Realm of the Elderlings, because there's one of the characters in here named Gringers. Gringers, Gringers or Gringers. I don't know. Stupid name. It's one of our main characters. This is also apparently technically book 3 in a series, but it stands alone, and I mean, well enough from reading it. I don't think it matters that much anyway, like I said. But from what I've seen, it's sort of the series is a little bit repetitive, I guess, where it's different characters each book, different kind of part that we're looking at, but the same kind of thing happening, I suppose. Although I haven't read the others, so I couldn't confirm. Now, I will say, this is going to be sort of a review, sort of me just talking about it. I'm also going to be spoiling. I don't think anybody's going to be running out to get this book, this random book from like 40 years ago that I'm also going to be talking mostly negatively about. So I'm just going to kind of talk about it and treat it as like, here's a fun book that'll tell you about how crazy it is. But if you don't want spoilers, if this is something you're interested in, you'll want to tune out. So this takes place on Draak is the world. And it's apparently humans had discovered it, and we hear there's like legends that, you know, a couple thousand years ago humans came from the sky and settled here. So that sort of set up where, like, you know, humans came to colonize, but it's a very inhospitable world, and there are these big things called Draaks, both sea and land Draaks, which are basically dragons. There are these people called the Nilak, who are natives, also called the Green Ones, and they can sing to like distract and or stop and get the Draaks to leave, so it becomes very important. And of course, naturally, humans being humans have kind of taken over and enslaved the Draak, and that's sort of the setup that we have. And our main character, Baldwin, is an Elak, but he was apparently like captured slash taken in and has been in a vegetative state, sort of, where he's just basically unaware, can still sort of function, and is like basically the pet of a man named Garv, who seems to not quite be all there in the head either. But then after a blow to the head, his like amnesia goes away, and he suddenly is like fully functioning and doesn't really know where he is. So already sort of a, you know, outdated, kind of convoluted start, but that's what we have. And so this ends up happening right around the time that a relative of Garv's is trying to get an expedition started to go travel to the land of the first men and to go find them based on some stories. And so that's kind of what ends up. They're like, oh, we can have this singer now. He can come with, and we'll go from there. And so that's sort of our setup. So it's a bit of a convoluted setup, and there is some interesting bits of the world building here with like the Nilak, and like there are these people who live on rafts and they travel back and forth between areas to collect spider moss, which is a big trade thing. And there's this other like empire that are the people who are really violent and who had ended up killing off a lot of the Nilak, so that there aren't many of them left, and that's why they're so rare, and the rest of them are enslaved. And so kind of that setup, and there's the, you know, the stories about the first man, kind of the idea of coming, you know, at some point obviously from space to colonize the planet. So we have some interesting bits of lore, but the biggest thing for me is like the story is very, you know, kind of forced with everything that's happening there. It doesn't seem to flow naturally, and some of the stuff in it is outdated. But also, it's just like these characters. I don't honestly have any idea how I'm supposed to react to these characters, because Baldwin, I imagine, is supposed to be sympathetic, but then like we have Garv, who's like not all there and is sort of like kindly but also like very possessive. We have our other characters, Theon and Gringers, who again seem like super like they're not good people, but then later it seems like we're trying to think maybe they are okay, and just this super winding weird thing, and you have like really specifically like from very early on, Gringer's being like super creepy toward Balavan in exactly the way that you're thinking, including when he was like, basically non-responsive. And so just like this whole kind of weird thing set up all of these different types of things. And it even plays it off later by saying like, oh, well, in the knee lock, some people there are just, will love anyone. And maybe that's just how this guy is. I'm like, no, he's super creepy and a predator. Like, not cool. Any of that sort of behavior and kind of things. And so it has some of that weird outdated feel where it's just like the storyline and the character plots don't make a lot of sense. But again, later it's just like, oh, they've become comrades as they are traveling and it's okay. And it was super weird and creepy. And they end up going and being on like the raft. It's his uncle is in charge of this group of rafters, and so they go and they're going to steal supplies there, and then they have to travel across the mountains. And so we have this plot line where they're trying to get through these like impassable mountains. And I think I forgot to mention, but the whole reason they're doing this is because they have this like magic picture box that shows like little movies. So it's basically like it recorded experiences, and they can see some people that were some of the first humans potentially in the city of Baralgan, and that's where they're trying to head to, because they've just shown that it exists, and they're hoping to go there and find riches and lost technology and stuff like that. And like you can see that people have like laser guns and light guns. That's kind of that they're described, and that's a thing. And so we have that kind of setup, and so they're going, and the journey is just kind of, I feel like that there's not a lot different to it. Like the kind of the rough journey over the mountains, I feel like is sort of a staple in a lot of fantasy books. So you have that. But then I was bordering, like some of this was okay. So I was bordering, like, is this going to be a 2-star or a 3-star? But then the ending was just dumb to me, honestly. So they end up finding Baralgan, and it's kind of like a, like very, very depleted sort of wasteland. And you just find out that the small amount of people there have just been inbreeding for so long that they're all like have all of these crazy defects like bird feet and stuff. And they end up getting to the leader, and it's this person who's like a Siamese twin. At like from like the waist up, there's two of them, and one of them is really mean and the other one's really nice, and it just was so silly and over the top. And they're trying to like examine them because they don't believe that there's actually people across the mountains, and apparently there are wastelanders who are somehow worse than these people because they've forgotten about technology, and they just assume they're wastelander spies. And so it's just like none of this felt at all like particularly original, but it also just wasn't executed very well. And so then naturally, since they're a dying populace, and they're like, oh, one of your party is female, we're gonna take her, you mind sharing? And it's this whole thing in this convoluted way that they escape and are going, and it's just it was just so silly and weird. And the whole thing, there were just so many points where I'm like, what am I reading? But it definitely is the kind of book I feel like where it's so absurd and just odd at points that like it wasn't entertaining. It's kind of like if you're watching like a B movie and like it's bad, but it's so bad it's good and kind of fun. And that's kind of the way that this felt to me. Like I'm not gonna go read the others. I'm definitely not really interested in checking out anything more of this author. But it was just kind of as a fun thing. It's a short book. It's under 300 pages in the mass market, and it was just like so ridiculous and so strange that I just kind of enjoyed going through. So I don't have any desire to check out more of this particular author or series, although I might start doing this occasionally where I just look for some interesting looking cover and kind of grab something and go and see what it is, whether it's good or it's bad. But this was just, this was a really, really strange one. Very, very strange. But it was just kind of like, I don't know, I still had a really fun time reading it. And I could tell immediately that it was going to be bad, and so I was expecting it, and I was okay with that. Like I said, it's just some miscellaneous pulpy kind of thing from the 80s. I was just my last episode actually was of Decades of Fantasy was the 80s, kind of talking here, and this feels like just sort of it's a mix of elements from prior decades and just kind of throwing it in, and it was odd, but it was kind of a fun read, I guess. So if you want to read just something super strange, maybe check the series out. But I definitely I don't recommend it highly. Just like I said, not particularly good, but it was a fun experience. But really, those are my thoughts on Beyond the Draak's Teeth. The Draak's Teeth are the mountain range, by the way. I should have specified there. Details are important, even for a book that I'm razzing on this whole time. But yeah, that's that one. So it was an interesting time. So let me know if you've heard of this author or this series or anything. I was looking at reviews, and there were some people who were just talking about how they remember reading it when they were younger, which I feel like every random like obscure fantasy book has that like group of people who read it when they were kids and loved it, and then usually those don't age the best. But I don't know, it's kind of fun. So let me know if you are familiar with this one, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Just because, like I said, it was not. I don't think it was good, but I had a fun time reading it because it was just kind of silly at points, but I had a fun time. So let me know in the comments. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.